guest is Jonathan Aslay, one of America's leading midlife self love and relationship coaches, whose journey took a profound turn after the heartbreaking loss of his son, Connor. Through that grief, Jonathan unearthed a deeper truth: love begins within. His book, What the Heck is Self Love Anyway, invites us all to heal, reconnect, and choose love from the inside out. So, this is a conversation about grief, grace, and growing through life's hardest moments. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
So thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today.
You're warmly welcome, Jonathan. So, Jonathan, your work around self love emerged from such deep personal grief. So, can you share that? How did the loss of your son shape your understanding of love, healing, and the inner journey?
So, you know, what was interesting in the when my son passed away, and please forgive me, I was tongue tied for a moment. When my son passed away, and I was doing his eulogy, speaking to his friends, family members, and everyone, and we're all in pain, we're all suffering through this experience. I stopped in that moment and I said, we have a choice. We can grieve with suffering or we can grieve with love. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought to myself in that moment, what would he want me to do? And I knew that he wouldn't want me to suffer. And so as I really began to explore, suffering, not just from the loss within, like a child or a family member passing away or that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
I started to realize that oftentimes I suffer within myself. And professionally, I'm a life coach, love coach, that sort of thing. And I'd been blogging about self love for a little while. I was blogging about it. And I thought, well, you know, if I can go inward and say, how can I fill my love cup within myself? Um, that was one of the questions that was asked, that I asked myself. And the answer was to write a book about self-love. And though my book is a very simplistic way of looking at life, it's through the lens of personal development, self-help, spiritual work, and therapy to create emotional scaffolding. So then when we are feeling doubt, fear, insecurities, anxieties, I believe if we nurture ourselves and our soul, we can navigate life's uncomfortable moments with a little bit more grace and ease.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan, it's incredibly powerful that how you have turned such profound loss into a path of love and healing, and not only for yourself but for others as well.
Yeah, I'm very blessed that, my journey has opened, doors and portals for other people to explore their own self-love. And And again, it's not so much a destination. Like my book doesn't have the answers. In fact, in many ways, it's just more questions. But the idea is to become more introspective, to look at life from the vantage point that things happen for us versus things happen to us. And to nurture our mind, our body, our spirit, our emotions. Particularly, I believe, for example, here in the United States, we are really called to shore up our spiritual and our emotional well-being, because oftentimes I believe people have been so indoctrinated in kind of a myopic self-serving point of view, which is turned, again, it's working on oneself, not at the expense of others, but really coming from a heartfelt place of how can I be of service to myself, and also how can I be of service to others.
Mm-hmm, that completely makes sense. So, was there a moment in your healing where you truly realized, that self love wasn't optional, it was essential?
You know, to the extent I believe that we are all, to the extent that it's an option, if you will, I think we all are invited. I think this journey of life, this experience of life is an invitation to heal
Mm-hmm.
generational trauma, to heal parental trauma, to navigate our emotions and our feelings in a way to overcome fear and doubt and insecurities. I believe that we are meant to experience all different types of emotions, but is to return to love at the end of the day. And what that means for each individual is different. Again, when I wrote the book, it was just an invitation to explore life with the lens of love, particularly for self. And again, self-love doesn't mean, you know, manicures and pedicures. To me, is self-love is
Mm-hmm.
encapsulates self-worth, self-esteem, self-reliance, self-discipline, self-confidence. It's all those self words wrapped into one. But most importantly, what I believe self-love is that we all have, as an adult, we all have an inner 6-year-old within ourselves that's just barely navigating the understanding of the world and we oftentimes view it from an emotional point of view. And that little 6-year-old inside of us can be scared a lot. And self-love is the adult in us nurturing that little 6-year-old inside of us.
Mm-hmm. That's such a moving reflection. Like real love doesn't skip over grief, it holds it with compassion, right?
Oh, absolutely. I believe when I think we experience grief in multiple ways. Certainly
Mm-hmm.
death is one way we experience grief. When a treasured relationship ends, we can experience grief when we lose a profession, or something changes in our professional life, or even our health. We go through a grieving process. And to the extent that sometimes we're in denial, sometimes we're we're bargaining for it to change, we're in depression, and certainly times we're anger. And ultimately, it's coming to a place of acceptance that, again, and one thing I learned when my son passed away is life is not permanent. There is something can change at any moment. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe one of the self-love practices, or at least it's an invitation, is to be present, because tomorrow can change radically. um, at the same time, prepare for the future, but live in the moment.
Yes, absolutely. All those things like are universal, like you said, tomorrow is radical, it can change anytime.
Yes, I mean, I learned that you can wake up one morning and your child
Mm-hmm.
can be gone. And so, what's interesting, when prior to my son passing away, I saw him a few days prior, and my last memory of him was a hug and a kiss and I love you. And now every single person who matters in my life, when I'm physically in their presence, I always make sure to give them a hug, to give them a kiss on the cheek, to say I love you. Whether, I mean, it's my friends, my family members, always to do that, because if I don't see them again, I want that to be my last memory.
Mm-hmm. That's an admirable gesture, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Now, in your coaching, you have seen like how dating often reveals a deeper issue, low self-worth. So how does someone, begin to shift from seeking validation to building genuine self-regard?
Boy, that's a real, I mean, I do this for a living, and even the answer to that question is complicated. So I've observed that dating and relationships trigger our number one emotional health issue, or at least it's the number one emotional health issue I believe most people have. And that is, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not likable. So to that extent, that it starts with an awareness of our fears, our insecurities, our negative judgments of others, how our actions affect others, our negative patterns, our limiting beliefs that bring us pain. And it starts with the awareness to shift to love when we recognize that. So, awareness is like, the way I view awareness is that we are all actors on a stage. And the director of the play, if you will, is our ego, and the other cast members are just mirrors of ourselves. But we have an audience member that's watching what's happening on stage. And to me, that's what self-awareness is, that capacity to see what's happening from an objective point of view.
Oh,
And
that's.
so
Mm-hmm.
coming from that place of an objective point of view, um, can help one step back from what's going on within a romantic relationship and not outsourcing our needs to another person. Now, ideally, if two people enter into a dating and relationship experience from the vantage point of what can I give versus what can I get, I believe that would be a healthy way of approaching it. The trick is detachment, to answer your question. And boy, it's hard to operate from a place of detachment, but at the same time, to be recognized that a healthy relationship is something built through trust, and recognizing that it takes two people willing to work on wanting to build something together. And if you go in cavalierly, if you go in unconsciously, you can become attached to a person that could eventually, I don't want to say intentionally hurt you, but you, by a byproduct of their actions, you might get hurt. And it's just stepping back and being objective is at least one start to not outsourcing our needs from another person.
Mm-hmm. That completely makes sense, and that really resonates. I feel that relationships often mirror back what we have left unhealed inside ourselves, right?
Absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, from a spiritual standpoint, relationships are a mirror of what's going on inside of us, and we choose people to help heal that. I mean, if you subscribe to a spiritual point of view, then it's to recognize that people come into your life to help you grow. Everything, I believe, everything that happens in our life is a message to help us grow. Um, it's learning to take the rose-colored glasses off, or take the cloudy glasses off, and or polish them, I guess would be another way of looking at it, so you can see all the beautiful gifts that life has to offer. And yes, life does come with suffering to some degree. And I think it is through our pain that we are given the opportunity to choose love over fear, to choose love over anger, to choose love over judgment, to choose love over shame. And particularly within other people, with other people in our lives, I think when we can operate from a place of compassion for ourselves, and we can operate from a place of compassion for others, I believe, and I say this as a belief because I can't read the minds of other people. I've certainly
Mm-hmm.
have listened to podcasts and watched programs, and the universal truth seems to be is when we can operate from a loving place, we feel more grounded, we feel more safe, we feel more joy, we feel more contentment, we feel more equanimity in life when we operate from a place of love. And there's nothing easy about this. I think a lot of the pain and suffering we have is an opportunity to return to love, and there are wonderful books out there. For example, there's a book by Marianne Williamson called Return to Love, which is an invitation to look at all of the nooks and crannies of an individual's life and say, how am I choosing love in each and every moment? And even I have a podcast called What Would Love Do? And it's like, it's looking at a circumstance and say, how can I operate at my highest frequency?
Mm-hmm. That's noteworthy. Now, Jonathan, your book is both playful and profound, no doubt. So, can you share one favorite self love practice from What the Heck is Self Love Anyway that listeners could try today?
Well, I'm going to share two, if that's okay. And the first one is chapter 1 of the book is Speak Your Truth, Do It with Kindness. And what that means is your truth is your feelings, your emotions. It's your truth. It's not the truth. Oftentimes people operate from a righteous point of view, is that they believe their opinions is the truth. But your opinions, your emotions, they're your truth, but they may not be the truth per se. So, chapter one is speak your truth with kindness. In other words, when you have something to share with someone, come from a kind, loving place, even if it's something that might be critical, it might be a criticism. Come from a kind, loving place, come from a sincere, heart centered place. In chapter nine, which kind of piggybacks this, if it's sincere and from the heart, you can't really say the wrong thing to the right person. So right person meaning whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a loved one, the right person understands you. They're willing to accept you. They want to nurture the relationship. Now, if you're coming from ego, if you're coming from fear, you can certainly agitate a relationship with another person. But when you're operating from the heart, particularly in romantic love, I tend to work with women in my coaching practice, and women
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes are fearful to speak up because they're afraid someone is going to run away and or reject them. And I'm here to say is, if you're speaking from the heart, you can't really say the wrong thing to the right person. The person who runs away is the person who's not meant to be there anyway. So why have duct tape on your mouth? Rip off that duct tape, speak from the heart, um, because that's what a romantic relationship is all about. I mean, the thing is, most of the time, it used to be romantic relationships or human pair bonding was for primarily survival needs. Now they are an opportunity to explore individual growth. And if you're holding back what's in your heart, then you're not giving that opportunity for the other person to invest in you at the same time. So speak your truth, do it with kindness is chapter one.
That's such a beautiful, simple yet powerful practice, Jonathan.
Thank
And
you.
I love, how accessible it is for anyone, no matter where they are on the self love journey.
You know, the thing is, we all come at this thing called life in a different vantage point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are blessed from the very beginning to have nurturing parents who are able to support their individual growth in a variety of different ways. Then there are those who have experienced a lot of pain and suffering. Um, you know, certainly they, I would say, oftentimes require more nurturing, more loving, as an adult. And to some extent, we're in an environment where we're getting access to all kinds of opportunities now, through social media. There's the recognition of things that were never around 50 or 100 years ago. Now we have access to so much opportunities to heal and grow. And those that have experienced more deeper pain came to this life experience wanting to heal from their past. And thankfully, we have opportunities. Listen, your podcast is a perfect example of that. It's an opportunity for an
Mm-hmm.
individual to go, wait, I can go read that book, Return to Love, or What the Heck is Self Love Anyway, by Jonathan Aslay, and go, oh, this might be an opportunity for me to heal. And by the way, let me be clear about my book. My book is simply a simple, it's a base understanding of it. There are much more profound books. My job is to be an entry point to invite people to love themselves.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure, Jonathan, your book, that's going to surely be beneficial for all our listeners out there.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be in a position where I can share what I'm radically curious. I'm curious about humanity. I'm curious about the evolution of man. I'm curious about emotional well-being. I'm curious about human pair bonding. So whenever I get a chance, I want to talk about this because I think when an individual operates from a place of curiosity, and I guess the big questions, excuse me, my voice is going. The big questions are, who am I? Why am I here? What's it all for? Wow, I can't believe I got tongue tied here for a second. Hmm. Excuse me, I had to drink some water. So
Yeah,
when you
sure.
begin this journey of who am I believe that if and I spend every day with that question. Who am I? Like from a deeper sense of who am I? Not what do I do for a living, but my identity. And it's I am here to experience life. This isn't who I am, but I'm here to experience life in a variety of different emotions. And I love to just talk about that. I think we are all, love at our core, and we're just peeling the layers to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
That identity that we're all souls here of love.
Mm. That's an important reframe. Jonathan, thank you for reminding us that self love isn't selfish, it's sacred. And to all our listeners, your grief, your growth, your joy, they all deserve space. So start with a breath, a truth, a little kindness. The journey back to love begins with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on and being able to share. And I hope everyone, takes from this conversation is, you know, even if you can just do it for 15 minutes a day, do something that nurtures your soul from a growth perspective. And I promise you, if you do it enough, you're going to find a little bit more peace in your life.